It started as one of those trips that sounded perfect on paper. Fresh air, the scent of pine, the kind of silence you can only find when the highway is miles behind you. That's what we were after. Me, my best friend Caleb, his girlfriend Marissa, and my cousin Josh. Four of us, packed into an aging SUV loaded down with tents, coolers, and enough firewood to last a week. We'd chosen an isolated spot deep in the Nevada backcountry, far away from the usual campgrounds. Caleb had found the location on some backcountry forum. A forgotten site, someone had called it. Not on the maps, but worth it for the view. That should have been a red flag, but at the time it felt like an adventure. The idea of camping somewhere so few had been excited us all. The dirt road grew narrower the deeper we drove. Trees closed in on both sides, their shadows leaning across the hood of the car as the late afternoon sun dipped lower. At one point, we passed a wooden sign so old and weather-worn it was barely legible. Only a few carved letters remained visible. Do not. The rest was chipped away, like something had clawed at it. I remember Caleb laughing it off. Probably said, "Do not litter." But something about the jagged edges didn't look like natural decay. When we finally reached the clearing, I had to admit it was beautiful. The space opened into a wide meadow, rimmed by towering pines that seemed to keep watch. The grass swayed in waves, as if some unseen current was moving through it. Beyond the meadow, the ground sloped upward toward a rocky ridge, and beyond that, the jagged peaks of the mountains glowed orange in the setting sun. "This is perfect," Marissa said, already pulling out her phone to take a picture. Of course, she had no service. None of us did, but that didn't stop her from trying. We set up camp quickly. 2 tents side by side, fire pit in the middle, cooler nearby. It looked like a picture from a catalog. By the time we got the fire going, the stars had begun to prick the sky, sharp and cold in the mountain air. That first night was almost peaceful. Almost. We sat around the fire telling stories, eating hot dogs charred on sticks, listening to the quiet hiss of the wood burning. But the silence of the forest pressed in heavier than I expected. I grew up camping, and I was used to the sounds of crickets, owls, the occasional rustle of a raccoon. But here, nothing. Not a chirp, not a rustle. The woods around us were utterly silent, like they were holding their breath. Josh noticed it too. He leaned closer to me when the others weren't paying attention. "Dude, is it me, or is this place way too quiet?" "Yeah," I admitted. "I don't like it." He tried to joke it off, but I could see the unease in his eyes. Later that night, when we finally crawled into our tents, I couldn't sleep. The fire had burned down to embers, but a faint glow still flickered through the thin tent fabric. Caleb's soft snoring came from the tent next to ours. The others were asleep, but I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of nylon. That's when I heard it. A sound faint and distant at first. Knock, knock, knock. 3 dull thuds like someone tapping wood with their knuckles. I froze, listened hard. Nothing. Then again. Knock, knock, knock. This time it was louder, closer. I sat up, straining to hear. Josh stirred beside me, mumbling something in his sleep. I shook him awake. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" His voice was groggy, annoyed. The knocking came again, sharp enough now that there was no mistaking it. Josh sat up fast. "What the hell is that?" I unzipped the tent just enough to peek out. The meadow was empty, lit only by the pale wash of moonlight. The trees loomed black at the edge of the clearing. No one there. But the knocking, it was coming from the woods, from the tree line itself. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more, steady, deliberate, and then silence. The forest went back to its breathless stillness. I wanted to wake Caleb and Marissa, but something inside told me not to. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to look paranoid. Maybe I thought if I ignored it, it would stop. Eventually, exhaustion won, and I drifted off to sleep. But the knocking followed me into my dreams. The morning came slow, pale sunlight seeping through the thin fabric of the tent. My eyes felt gritty, my body heavy from the restless night. For a brief moment, I convinced myself that the knocking had been a dream, just a trick of exhaustion and nerves. But then I caught Josh's look from across the campfire, and I knew he'd heard it too. Neither of us said anything at first. Marissa was humming cheerfully while making instant coffee with a camping stove, and Caleb was busy splitting logs for the fire. They seemed rested, normal, untouched by whatever had stalked the edge of our camp. Josh and I exchanged a quick glance but let it drop. No sense in spoiling the mood. Still, as we ate, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet. No birdsong, no insects buzzing, just the low crackle of our fire and the occasional scrape of forks against tin plates. I noticed Marissa pause once, frowning as she looked into the trees, as if she too felt something watching. But then Caleb cracked a joke about luxury camping, and the moment passed. After breakfast, we decided to explore. Caleb was always the adventurous type, and Marissa never liked sitting still. Josh and I followed reluctantly, though I kept glancing back toward camp, uneasy about leaving it unattended. We set off toward the ridge, cutting through the meadow and into the darker line of pines. Almost immediately, the air changed. It grew cooler, damp, as though sunlight had never quite reached the forest floor. The ground was littered with pine needles, thick enough to muffle our footsteps. And then, about 10 minutes in, we saw it. At first, I thought it was just another tree. But as we drew closer, I realized the bark was marked. Not by nature, but by something deliberate. 3 deep gouges ran down its trunk, long and straight like claw marks. The wood beneath was pale and raw, as if freshly carved. Mountain lion, maybe? Caleb suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. No, Josh said flatly. That's not an animal. Look, perfectly straight. Too deep. Marissa reached out as if to touch the grooves, then hesitated. Her fingers hovered an inch from the wood before she pulled back. It feels wrong, she whispered. We kept walking, but the deeper we went, the more of those trees we found, always in sets of 3. 3 gouges, 3 scratches, sometimes carved so deep the bark had bled sap. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. I started counting them without meaning to. By the time we reached a small stream cutting through the woods, I'd tallied at least 9. That's when we found the second sign. Lying across the stream was a fallen log, and on it, resting right in the center, was a small pile of stones, perfectly stacked, balanced in a way that looked impossible for nature to do on its own. The rocks were flat, arranged from largest on the bottom to smallest on top. Caleb picked one up, turning it over in his hand. It was smooth, unnaturally so, like river stone, but the stream was too shallow to have shaped it that way. As soon as he removed it, the stack collapsed. The other stones tumbled into the water, breaking the unnatural balance. And from the woods behind us, knock, knock, knock. All 4 of us froze. It was the same rhythm as last night. 3 knocks, deliberate, echoing through the trees. Someone's messing with us, Caleb said quickly, though I could see the sweat beading on his forehead. It's got to be some local kids. Maybe they followed us out here. Josh shook his head. No one knew we were coming. No one could even find this place without directions. Another knock, 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 closer this time. Marissa clutched Caleb's arm. Let's go back. No one argued. We retraced our steps, moving quickly but trying not to run. The whole way back, the knocks followed us, sometimes ahead of us, sometimes behind, always in sets of 3. When we finally burst back into the meadow, our camp looked untouched. Tents still standing, cooler still shut, fire pit cold but undisturbed. It was as if nothing had happened. But when I stepped toward my tent, I stopped cold. On the flap, scratched into the nylon with something sharp, were 3 long marks, perfectly straight, perfectly deliberate. Josh swore under his breath. Caleb went pale. Marissa whispered, "It followed us." We didn't unpack that night. None of us had the energy. Instead, we sat around the fire as the sun dipped low, the unease in our circle growing heavier with each passing minute. The silence of the forest pressed closer, thicker, until even Caleb didn't bother joking anymore. We all felt it, that invisible gaze from the tree line, watching, waiting. And when the darkness settled fully, the knocks began again. This time, they didn't stop. The knocks came in waves that night. Knock, knock, knock. Silence. Then again, closer. Knock, knock, knock. It was like it was circling the camp, tapping the trunks of trees, moving in patterns we couldn't follow. At first, we tried to convince ourselves it was wind, or branches, or some strange echo. But the rhythm was too exact, too deliberate, always three, always measured. Josh gripped the flashlight like a weapon, his knuckles white. Caleb poked at the fire, keeping it alive longer than necessary. Marissa sat wrapped in a blanket, her eyes locked on the shadows at the tree line. I couldn't shake the feeling that the fire was the only thing keeping it from stepping closer. Then it changed tactics. From somewhere deep in the woods came a crack, the sound of a branch snapping under weight. Then another. Something was moving out there, heavy, deliberate. The knock stopped. Now it was footsteps. Marissa whispered, "It's coming closer." Josh raised the flashlight and aimed it toward the sound. The beam caught nothing but branches and needles swaying gently in the night breeze, but I swear I saw something shift between the trunks, a darker patch of black moving against the shadows. "See that?" I hissed. Josh didn't answer, but I felt his hand shaking where it held the light. The footsteps stopped. For a long, terrible moment, the forest was silent again. Then, knock, knock, knock. This time, it wasn't on a tree. It was on Caleb's tent. He leapt to his feet, cursing, the blanket falling from Marissa's shoulders as she gasped. Josh swung the flashlight wildly toward the tent. The nylon glowed pale under the beam, but there was no shape, no hand, no figure standing there. Just the three fresh indentations, deep enough to nearly tear through the fabric. "That's it," Caleb snapped, his voice cracking. "I'm done. We're leaving. Right now." "No," Josh said sharply, almost desperate. "No, we can't hike back in the dark." "That's exactly what it wants." The words hung in the air. None of us wanted to ask what he meant. We sat back down, huddled close to the fire. The silence pressed heavier, almost suffocating, broken only by the occasional pop of burning wood. Then, slowly, it stepped closer. We heard it first in the brush, something big moving just out of sight, crunching through leaves and twigs. Then came the low scrape of bark against bark, like claws dragging across trunks. I forced myself to look up, and that's when I saw it. At the far edge of the firelight, half hidden behind a pine, something stood. Its shape was wrong, tall and thin, stretched too long for any human. Its skin, or what little I could see, was gray, blending with the bark, mottled like shadows. Its head was tilted, almost curious, and its arms hung low, hands brushing against its knees. I couldn't see its face. Thank God I couldn't see its face, but I knew it was watching us. The fire crackled, a log collapsing into ash, and as the sparks rose, it shifted. Slowly, one arm lifted, long fingers curling around the trunk. Then, knock, knock, knock. On the tree it leaned against. Marissa whimpered, covering her ears. Caleb grabbed for her hand. Josh froze, flashlight still locked on the figure, his breath shallow. I couldn't move, couldn't blink, couldn't even breathe. And then, as though the light itself burned it, the thing slipped back behind the tree, vanished into the dark. The knock started again, circling, always three, always taunting. That night, none of us slept. Every time exhaustion pulled me under, a sound would jolt me back. The scrape of claws, the shuffle of footsteps, the rhythmic knock. Hours passed like that, until the gray light of dawn finally broke over the meadow. The forest looked normal again, peaceful even, but when I stepped out of my tent, I found something waiting by the fire pit. A small pile of stones, perfectly stacked, balanced in threes, and resting on top was a strip of fabric, bright orange, torn from Caleb's backpack. Morning didn't bring relief. It just made everything feel wrong. Birds should have been singing. Insects should have been buzzing. But the forest was dead silent, as if holding its breath. The only sound was the crackle of the fire as Josh stirred the ashes, forcing flames back to life. None of us said much. We didn't need to. The stone pile and torn strip of fabric by the fire pit spoke louder than words. Caleb wouldn't admit it was from his backpack, but the color was exact. Marissa sat close to him, eyes hollow, lips trembling like she wanted to cry, but couldn't. Josh was restless, pacing, constantly scanning the trees. And me, I just wanted to leave. But something about the woods made the thought of running feel pointless. like it would follow, like it would catch us anyway. By noon, Caleb snapped, "That's it. We're not staying another night. I don't care what you say, Josh. We pack up and go." Josh shook his head. "You don't get it. If we move now, it'll take us in the trees. We're safer staying here." "Safer?" Caleb's voice broke. "Safer? You saw that thing. You saw what it did. You think sitting here waiting makes us safer?" Marissa finally spoke, her voice soft but sharp. "It's playing with us. Like it's not in a hurry. Like it knows we can't leave." That was the breaking point. Caleb stood, storming toward his tent. "I'm leaving, with or without you." I wanted to stop him. I opened my mouth, but the words stuck. What could I say? That he was right? That staying felt like sitting ducks? He tore through his pack, yanking out supplies, shoving things into pockets. Marissa begged him to wait, to at least stick together, but he wouldn't listen. "I'll find the trailhead. I'll send help," he muttered, over and over, like he was convincing himself. And then he was gone. He marched into the tree line, head high, shoulders stiff, like if he walked with enough confidence, the forest would respect him. His boots crunched on dry leaves until the sound faded. Then, nothing. Marissa collapsed against me, sobbing now. Josh stood frozen, fists clenched, jaw tight, his eyes locked on the empty space where Caleb had vanished. Minutes passed, then an hour. The woods stayed silent, until knock, knock, knock. The sound came from deep in the trees, farther than before, then again, closer. Knock, knock, knock. Marissa's tears turned to gasps. "It has him," Josh whispered. No, maybe he's..." But he didn't finish. He didn't believe it himself. Another sound rose then, faint at first, carried on the breeze. A voice. Caleb's voice. "Guys. Hey. Over here." It was weak, strained, but unmistakable. We leapt to our feet, spinning toward the sound. "Caleb!" Marissa screamed, running 2 steps before I grabbed her arm. "No, it's a trick!" She fought me, sobbing, desperate. "That's him! He's calling for us!" Josh was pale as bone. Listen to the words, just the words." The voice came again, louder, closer. "Guys, hey, over here." The exact same words, same cadence, same tone, like a recording on repeat. And then, mixed into the echo, something else. A chuckle. Low, inhuman, mocking. I dragged Marissa back, holding her as she trembled, her fists beating weakly against my chest. She didn't want to believe it, but she knew. We all did. Caleb wasn't coming back. When the sun finally began to sink behind the trees, painting the forest in blood-orange light, the voice faded. But the knocks never stopped. Always 3, always closer. That night, there were only 3 of us left, and the fire felt smaller than ever. That night, the forest pressed against us like a living thing. The fire flickered weakly, throwing shadows that seemed to twitch and stretch, forming hands that clawed at the ground. We huddled close, none of us daring to sleep. Every gust of wind carried whispers we couldn't quite understand, like voices overlapping, speaking from all sides. Josh kept an axe gripped in his hands, knuckles white, eyes darting into the dark. Marissa had retreated into herself, rocking slightly, murmuring Caleb's name under her breath as if saying it would bring him back. I just tried to breathe, slow, steady. Pretend the knocks weren't there. Pretend the voice wasn't still calling. Knock, knock, knock. It circled us, always circling. The sound would fade to one side of the camp, only to slam against the other, closer, as though the forest itself had turned into a drum, and unseen fists were pounding on it. Suddenly, snap, a twig, heavy, deliberate. Josh jerked upright, raising the axe. His chest heaved, sweat glistening on his brow. "It's here," he whispered. I grabbed Marissa's hand, squeezing so hard I thought her bones would break. She didn't even react. Then we saw it. 2 pinpricks of light in the trees. Not eyes. Too far apart. Too still. But glowing, pulsing, like lanterns held by invisible hands. They hovered just beyond the firelight, watching. Don't move, Josh said, voice low, almost broken. The lights blinked out, and then the woods exploded. Branches snapped, leaves thrashed. Heavy footfalls pounded the earth as something massive darted around the edge of the firelight. Too fast to see, too big to ignore. Our fire flared and guttered, shadows stretching like claws across the tents. Marissa screamed as a shape darted past her tent, the fabric bowing inward as if pressed by a face from the outside. For a heartbeat, I saw it. Pale skin, too smooth, too tight, with a grin carved from ear to ear. No eyes, just pits. Josh swung the axe at empty air, shouting, "Get back! Get back!" The blade whistled through the smoke, catching nothing but sparks. Then came the whisper, from all sides. "You shouldn't have come here." The words crawled into my ears, into my skull, echoing in a dozen voices, male, female, children, all overlapping. The ground trembled, stones from the fire pit rattled. Marissa fell to her knees, clutching her head, screaming, "Stop! Stop!" And then, whoosh! The fire went out. Darkness swallowed us whole. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. My pulse thundered in my throat, my hands groping blindly in the black. Somewhere ahead, Josh cursed, swinging wildly. Something heavy slammed into him, a wet crunch, and he howled in pain. Marissa's hand ripped from mine. Her scream split the night. I lunged forward, grabbing at her, but my hands found only empty air. Her voice was dragged upward, away from me, vanishing into the trees above, cut off mid-scream as if a hand had clamped over her mouth. "Marissa!" The forest answered with silence. No rustling, no movement. Not even Josh's ragged breathing. Just silence so heavy it felt like it was pushing me into the ground. Then, knock, 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 directly behind me. I spun, stumbling backward into the ashes of our fire pit. My chest burned, my throat raw, my eyes useless in the void. I could feel it standing there, inches away, watching, waiting. The voice returned, but softer now, intimate, right against my ear. One left, and then light. A faint gray glow filtered through the trees. Dawn. The woods were empty. The fire was cold. Josh's axe lay in the dirt, bloodied, but there was no sign of him. No sign of Marissa. No footprints. No drag marks. Just me. Alone. And the sound of 3 knocks echoing in the distance as the sun rose. The sun should have saved me. That gray morning light pushed between the trees, but it didn't bring warmth or safety or relief. Instead, it revealed what I hadn't wanted to see. The forest was still watching. The trees leaned inward, their branches knotted together like fingers locked in prayer. Shadows pooled beneath them, darker than they had any right to be in daylight. And the silence, the crushing silence, remained, as if every bird, every insect, every living thing had been swallowed whole. I whispered to myself, "Just walk. Just leave." My voice cracked, ragged. I grabbed Josh's axe with shaking hands. The wood was slick, sticky with his blood, but I forced myself to carry it. Without it, I felt naked, vulnerable. The trail home was gone. I knew which direction the camp road had been, north, downhill, toward the creek, but the path was gone, swallowed by the forest. Trees I didn't recognize crowded in close, their bark slick and black as if burned. No footprints, no landmarks, just endless trunks in every direction. I walked anyway. Every step felt like it sank deeper into the earth, like the forest was dragging me down. My legs shook, my throat raw from thirst, my stomach clawing at itself. But the real weight wasn't hunger or fatigue. It was the constant feeling that I wasn't alone, that if I turned my head too fast, I'd catch something watching from just beyond the trees. Hours passed, maybe minutes. Time didn't make sense anymore. The light never changed. The sun stayed low, trapped in permanent dawn. And then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. I froze, axe raised. The sound came from ahead this time, clear, deliberate, like fists pounding on wood. I forced myself to move toward it, every muscle screaming no, every instinct begging me to run the other way. But something deep down told me, this is the only way out. The knocking grew louder as I pushed through the undergrowth. The trees thinned, the air turned colder, and then I saw it. A cabin. It leaned crooked in a small clearing, its boards rotted, its windows black holes. Smoke, or something like it, oozed from the chimney, curling unnaturally in the still air. The knocking came from inside, steady, slow, shaking the walls. My breath caught. There was no cabin when we came out here. None. But the forest wanted me here. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, 3 knocks sounded behind me. I spun, axe ready, but the trees stood still, innocent. My pulse thundered, my skin prickling. And then, the cabin door creaked open by itself. I should have run. God help me, I should have run. But I walked forward, one step at a time, the axe heavy in my grip. Inside, it was dark. Colder than outside. Dust swirled in the weak light spilling through the door. The smell hit me first. Rot, damp earth, and something metallic, like rust or blood. The knocking started again. Upstairs. I whispered, "No, no, no, no." But my feet betrayed me. The staircase groaned under my weight as I climbed. Each step brought the sound sharper, closer. My throat was so dry I couldn't even swallow. At the top a hallway stretched, doors on either side. The knocking came from the farthest one, slow, patient, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. I approached, each sound shaking the floorboards. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I pushed the door open. The room was empty. Just bare wooden walls, dust. A broken chair in the corner. No one there. Nothing that could have made the noise. And then, behind me, a voice. Software. Right against my ear. "Welcome home." The door slammed shut. The knocking started again, but this time, it came from inside the walls, all around me, above, below, inside the floor, inside the ceiling, inside the boards themselves. The whole room pulsed with it. Knock, knock, knock. The axe slipped from my hand, and in that moment, I knew. I was never leaving this forest, because it didn't matter if I found the trail, didn't matter if I ran until my legs gave out. The forest wasn't a place. It was a prison, and now I was part of it. The knocking stopped. Silence pressed in, heavy as earth. My breath came quick, shallow, the air too thick to swallow. The room's walls swelled, contracting with the faint creak of ancient timber, as though the cabin itself was breathing. I pressed my back to the wall, eyes darting for the axe I'd dropped. It was gone. The floorboards stretched bare beneath me. And then, 3 knocks. But this time, they came from inside my chest. Knock, knock, knock. The blows shook through my ribs like fists pounding from within. I gasped, clutching at myself, nails digging through my shirt. My heart raced, stuttered, then fell into rhythm with the sound. It wasn't knocking anymore. It was a heartbeat, and it wasn't mine. I stumbled, hitting the wall, but the wood flexed under my weight. Soft, damp, like flesh. When I pulled back, my hand left an imprint in it, as if the cabin had absorbed me for a moment. A whisper slithered through the air. 3 knocks for the body, 3 for the soul, 3 for the door that never opens. The voice was neither male nor female, young nor old. It was every voice at once, familiar, alien. It bled from the walls, from the floor, from the air inside my skull. I shouted, "What do you want from me?" The room answered with memory. The walls rippled, and suddenly I was standing back at camp. I saw Josh by the fire, grinning, tossing kindling into the flames. I saw Maria, her laugh cutting through the night. I saw them alive, unaware, shadows stretching long behind them. And then, 3 knocks echoed through the forest. The scene twisted. Maria screamed. Josh's smile collapsed into terror. The fire died, leaving only blackness. Their faces melted into the trees, their voices echoing inside the branches. Back in the room, I fell to my knees. My friends weren't taken by accident. They'd been called. The whispers coiled around me. The first knock is invitation. The second is binding. The third is forever. I understood then. The 3 knocks weren't warnings. They weren't threats. They were rituals. Each one pulled us closer. Each one sealed us in. And I had answered them. I stumbled toward the door, clawing at the knob, yanking until my palms split open. The wood pulsed against my skin, almost eager, drinking the blood. The knob turned, not by me, but by the forest itself. The door opened. On the other side wasn't the hallway. It wasn't the cabin. It was the forest again. Endless trees, endless shadows, and waiting there were my friends. Josh stood first, his head tilted wrong, eyes black as the spaces between stars. Maria behind him, her mouth moving soundlessly, lips repeating words I couldn't hear. Behind them, more shapes, others I didn't recognize. Dozens, hundreds, all pale, hollow-eyed, their bodies swaying like they were waiting for something. They raised their hands in unison. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from their chests, their bones rattling like drums. It shook the earth. It rattled my teeth. And in the distance, beyond them all, I saw it. Something vast. Something crouched among the trees, its body hidden in shadow, but its presence undeniable. Antlers scraped the sky. Its eyes burned holes through the forest. Its heartbeat was the knocking. The forest wasn't haunted. The forest was alive. And I had walked right into its heart. The whispers flooded back, deafening now. You are the seventh. The circle closes. The door is sealed. I tried to run. I tried to fight. But my body wasn't mine anymore. My feet moved forward without command, carrying me toward my friends, toward the dark mass looming behind them. The last thought that pierced through the haze was this. The knocks weren't to scare us. They were to let us know the forest was opening its door, and now we belonged inside.
Thank you for watching C&T Horror Stories. Please like and subscribe for more stories.